Guys, namaste, fist pump. Angus here, video on lumen and insulin resistance. And no, this is not a medical video, and no, I'm not your doctor. So if you have insulin resistance, please go see an actual doctor, an MD or a GP. But this can kind of give you a clue on what's happening in your body. So continuous glucose monitors are really popular just now. A lot of countries, you'll need a prescription, or they're very expensive to buy because they're kind of last for 14 days and you have to replace them. I think they're about £50 a time. Where Lumen is on a subscription model, I think it's about £20 a month. It gives you a macro breakdown of things to follow, and it can tell what's happening in your body, or you can use information to tell what's happening in your body. So what Lumen does is it tells by your CO2. This is what happens with carbohydrates and fat when you burn them. They come out of your mouth as CO2. And the higher the CO2 compared to the oxygen coming in, you're burning carbohydrates, and the lower compared to the oxygen coming in, you are burning fat, or you're burning a ratio of the two. And this has nothing to do with, or necessarily nothing to do with ketosis. So with insulin resistance, what's happening is your muscles are not letting insulin open the door to let the nutrients into the muscle. So with insulin resistance, you can feel fatigued, you can feel tired, you can finish a workout and your body doesn't replenish properly after, so you kind of do workout after workout and you get more and more tired. Your muscle tissue can start to get stripped down because you now need fuel for that workout, so it needs more glucose for that workout, and you generally just spiral out of control. And insulin resistance is something that I've had to deal with, and I think it's a really huge underlying factor when it comes to weight gain and weight loss, because your body doesn't function as it should. Insulin resistance is not the default setting of a human body. It's something gone wrong and something is breaking, and we need to kind of have a look and fix that. So one of the main things is people just are not active enough. So you need to get more active. One of the problems with that is high intensity exercise is absolutely awesome for repairing insulin resistance, but it's also freaking terrible at causing more stress in your life. So there's two things that cause insulin resistance. Way too much carbohydrates coming into the system, way too many calories in general coming into the system, and just pounding the system until these locks degrade. So think about insulin. You got the receptor breaks down, and that's what insulin resistance is. So when that receptor breaks down, the insulin can't get in, it doesn't fit anymore, because it's like a key going into lock and it's gone in a million times and the receptor has broken down. And insulin resistance starts in the legs. So that gives you a huge clue on what you should be doing. Using your legs, walking, running, cycling. Running can be really difficult if you're overweight, so don't start off with that. Start off with walking. Cycling is fantastic because the bike takes care of most of your weight and you can monitor your watts. I do have a low intensity guide in the description box that's well worth getting out, because this is one of the hugest things that I see in people that I test in the gym. The people in the gym with the bigger waist circumference have the lower watts output at low intensity. So it gives you a massive clue. There's this study that I'll pop on screen here from Indigo San Milan, and it's showing 3 different levels of elite cyclists, recreational cyclists, and people with type 2 diabetes, which is kind of the ultimate end of insulin resistance. And you can see that there's a massive difference in watt output, and also on how much fat these people can actually burn. So now with insulin resistance, you're in this trap of not being able to burn enough fat, only kind of burning carbohydrates, and you're burning the carbohydrates, not storing the carbohydrates. So then insulin becomes this thing we fear. So up your activity. But when we're using Lumen, we can kind of see what's happening. If you're waking up in the morning with 4s and 5s every single day and you're having a low carbohydrate diet, you got to be thinking, these carbohydrates that you've consumed are just not getting into the muscle. They're not disappearing. They're just constantly being burned. And you're in a cycle of constantly burning carbohydrates and never really getting rid of these or storing these carbohydrates for later use. So your kind of energy, your power output will be lower than someone who's insulin sensitive, or the natural state of the human body. So when we talk about insulin sensitive, this is where we should be as a human animal. We should be insulin sensitive. And if we're not, we need to be building up this level, building up our fitness level, building up our strength. So getting better at squats, getting better at push-ups, getting better at jumping, climbing, running, etc., etc., etc. And depending on your weight, this is really different for each and every person. So attacking insulin resistance can be done through a dietary approach. One of the most mind-blowing things is, even on a low carbohydrate diet, you can develop insulin resistance through the other way, that you're not putting enough in, so these like receptors don't get enough practice. So you get the problem with insulin receptors where you put too much in, and you got the problem with insulin receptors where you don't put enough in. And the other problem with a low carbohydrate diet is you've got a hormone called cortisol. And cortisol's job is to raise blood sugar. And cortisol happens when you are stressed. And not that cortisol is the super demon, as I keep saying, it's like a mercenary squad where the brain goes, hey, raise blood sugar, and they go, yeah, any means necessary. And what can happen is if you're continuously stressed, you can actually raise your blood sugar chronically to a chronic level where these insulin receptors break down even on a low carbohydrate diet. And this is where you're kind of stripping down muscle tissue or breaking down other lean tissues to create glucose through gluconeogenesis, and this is causing insulin resistance just through stress. So low intensity exercise is freaking awesome because you train your muscles, you lower cortisol, you get better at burning fat. It's a default setting for humans that we are not meeting anymore. So my low intensity guide is in there, and it's huge at reversing insulin sensitivity. With polarized training, you do 80% of your training low intensity, and then you do the other 20% high intensity. And that, for a lot of people, work a lot better than hammering out high intensity, high intensity, high intensity, and just adding more stress into the system. So you're kind of, yeah, you on one end, you're making your muscles more insulin sensitive, but you're chronically elevating this blood sugar, and as you chronically elevate this blood sugar, you'll be chronically craving carbohydrates. And it's the eating of too many calories. So dieting isn't about creating a calorie deficit as much as it's about lowering appetite so you create a calorie deficit or an energy deficit. So hopefully that helps. If you don't have a wee Lumen device, totally recommend getting one. Check out the link below for a description, and my low intensity guide is completely free in there. And feel free to drop any comments and questions in the description box. And that's me out. Thanks for watching.